Hi, this is Julie from Crafty Julie, and today I want to show you how to conserve paper using the Cricut Design Space. I'm creating a project with 3x4 and 4x6 tab dividers, and when I go to make this project, the Cricut Design Space is putting my items on a 12x12 sheet of paper, which I'm going to use, but it's creating it on 5 different mats, and that to me doesn't seem very efficient because I have a lot of wasted paper. Originally, when I first created this project, it actually showed it to me on 6 mats instead of 5. I'm not quite sure why it switched now to 5 mats with the same number of objects. So it is trying to conserve space, but it's really not doing a great job using the paper as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to show you some quick tips on how to rearrange your objects so that it cuts on your paper just the way you want it. So the first thing that you want to do, make sure that you have all of your objects included on your Design Space Studio, and then what you want to do is create a faux background so that you can see what your sheet of paper will look like when it cuts out. So to do that, you want to go to Shapes and then create a square. Today I am using 12x12 sheets of paper. So what you do is you add in this square and then you're going to resize it so that it matches the size of your paper. So for me, it's a 12x12, so I'm going to type the 12, and because this lock is on, it's going to automatically keep the ratio of a square. If you're not going to do it in a square in 8.5 by 11, just make sure you untoggle this lock button, and then you can type 8.5 by 11 in the 2 boxes. So you'll notice it's sitting on top of all of my objects, and that's okay, we'll fix that in a second. What I'm going to do is then duplicate this so I have it sitting here 4 times. So this is 1 square, 2, 3, and 4. So those are going to represent my mats or my sheets of paper. So the next thing what we want to do is to arrange our objects so that it's these sheets of paper so that it's behind our objects. And to do that in 2 different ways. You could either click them all holding down the Shift key on your Design Space area, or you can hold down the Shift key and click on each one of them in the right-hand sidebar that shows what all your objects are. Once you have them clicked, then you're going to go ahead and go over to the Arrange tab, and you want to say Move to Back so it's behind everything else. And now I'm going to reduce my resolution here just a little bit so I can get these sorted. I also right now have all of my objects in mini groups, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them out of the way, and I am going to start with this first group, and I'll zoom back in. And I'm going to ungroup them since they're stuck together right now. You'll notice it's under the Group tab, and we've got all these objects underneath there. So I'm going to ungroup them so I can move each card individually. And then I just want them to fit nicely across my sheet of paper. Now this one, I want to rotate it. So what I'm going to do is this arrow turn key here will allow you to rotate any object. You can rotate it here, but if you want to be more fine-tuned about your rotating, there's also a option up here where you can type in exactly that you want to rotate to 90, or you can shift it to 180 or -90 so it flips the other way. But you can use either one to move your objects. So I'm just going to keep building all of my sheets of paper. So now that I've sorted out all of my objects, I notice that I still have a decent chunk of paper left. I don't think that I can conserve all of these objects down to 3 sheets of paper, but I do have this empty space, so I'm going to go ahead and create one more group. So I will have 12 3x4 cards instead. So to highlight all of those, you will just click on each item while holding down the Shift key, or your Control key will work as well. And then they're all going to be grouped together, and you're going to hit the duplicate option. Once you have them duplicated, then you can go ahead and drag all of your objects where you need them to go. And so I'm just going to squeeze them on the sheet here, and I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to fit them in. So now that I have all of my objects on my sheets, the first thing I'm going to do is just to make sure that they will cut properly on my sheets. There's a little bit of a gutter, kind of like when you print on paper, you've got your margins. The same thing happens on your Cricut, is that you have a gutter. So you can't go outside of a certain range. On a 12x12 sheet, you can't cut beyond 11.5 by 11.5. So to double check that, you're going to hide your background. So go ahead and click on whatever your background paper is, and it'll show up over here on the right hand side bar, and then you'll just click on the eyeball and it will hide that object. It won't cut it later on, it's just going to hide it. So we're really using it as a guide. Then I'll click and drag across all of the objects that I want to cut on one sheet, and I'll just make sure that the measurements on the side are going to match the size of where the paper is going to cut on my Cricut. So it's in the 11.5 by 11.5 range. So I'm going to go ahead and attach all of these objects together so that the Cricut knows keep them together when I cut them. So once you hit attach, you'll notice that they now are all selected together. It will say detach instead of attach because they're all together, and it also will show them attached underneath a group here. And then if I go back and to click on any single object, it's going to grab the whole group. So I'm going to do that for each of my sheets. So now I've got 4 groups of objects here on my page. So when I go and make this on my Cricut, it's going to force those onto 4 sheets. So I'm going to go to make it. And right here you can see here is my 4 mats with all of the objects that I've conserved together. So I hope that this quick tutorial helped you to conserve your paper just a little bit, and I'm not quite sure why Cricut doesn't conform everything or turn objects when it comes to cutting, but at least this way you can save some paper. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to check out my blog, craftyjulie.com, for more tips and tricks and ways to lead your best creative life. I'll talk to you guys soon.